Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the 11th main game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and it's about to finally release. And after people got a little tired of the franchise when Ubisoft was just pumping out a new Assassin's Creed game every year for a long time, with the release of Assassin's Creed Origins last year, the series finally returned to its former glory. And it got all around pretty good reviews when it released at the same time last year. And there's a lot of hype for Assassin's Creed again here because the innovations that were present in Assassin's Creed Origins are looking to be built upon even further in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But how does the return to shorter breaks between games affect the final product? Can Ubisoft claim the same success they had last year and build upon Origins' success? Well, today on the pre-review series, we're going to be taking a look at everything that we know so far about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, some of the pre-gameplay that we've gotten to see, and see if this game is going to be worth your hard money, whether you decide to buy the game on release, or if you're going to pre-order the game. Let's get into it. Chronologically, this installment is set at the earliest time we've seen so far. It's set in ancient Greece and takes place 400 years earlier than the events we see in Assassin's Creed Origins. This game will take place during the somewhat fictional Peloponnesian War between Greece and Sparta. In this game, you take on the role of either Alexios or Cassandra, descendants of the legendary Spartan king Leonidas, and unlike games like Syndicate, where you could also choose characters, you stick with your character from start to finish, and they both have the same abilities. For the first time in Assassin's Creed history, the story will actually change based on your player's decision, which means that there are multiple different endings, and there is a greater replay value right away just because during your first playthrough, you're going to have a different experience than what you're going to see in your second or even third playthrough of the game. And this is even proven here because you get to choose between two different factions at war, and ultimately you can decide the outcome of this huge war based off of your decisions and your overall actions. And if that wasn't enough to do, there's a ton of other things going on in the games like side quests, even romantic-based side quests. It's kind of a newer element, but it might work here if it's more on the similar lines of Mass Effect. And so far from what we see, a lot of the features that worked in Assassin's Creed Origins are going to be making their return. So, for instance, you'll be able to customize your loadout and even map specific skills onto your controller or your keyboard or whatever you're playing on, which will give you kind of an extra level of customization, or at least let you best use the things that you're going to use more in the game than maybe some features or attack type things that you don't normally use. They also are adding much more RPG elements compared to what we saw in Origins. We're going to see a typical kind of skill tree going on where you can buy and upgrade your different abilities, like the hunter abilities where you use your ranged weapons, your warrior abilities that let you win in close quarter battles, and of course your assassin abilities that let you sneak around and just be a general better assassin. We saw these things in Origins, but it looks like they're going to be expanded on, and there's going to be some new things here too, which is definitely nice. On top of that, the world building is looking really promising also, as each character is going to have their own unique voice actor, which is really nice, and it'll kind of add more to the expanded world than just the main narrative. And it's also really cool that in this game, since they're bringing back naval warfare, you're going to be able to upgrade your ship and recruit pretty much anyone that you want from the open world to join your crew. And since this map has a lot of different places to explore, you're going to be able to kind of sail around. And that's a whole new form of transportation, travel, and exploration. And hopefully, if this is done right, it's going to make the game continuously feel like a new experience rather than kind of just being in the open world and getting to explore it all in the first couple hours of gameplay. Hopefully, having this water and naval element into the game, it's going to make the game feel much larger and grand and kind of pace out how much is revealed in the first couple hours of the game as opposed to the later section of the game. Of course, we're also seeing some more features from Origins that worked well or were kind of indifferent. We're going to see a lot of the interface mechanics coming as the same, and we still have the bird that lets you survey the world. That's not going to be that much different, and it does to an extent feel like they put a lot of detail into the game, and some characters even throw around swear words in Greece, so maybe that'll add and liven up your game a little bit, or just the general experience you're going to have. A lot of the missions in this game are also going to feel a little bit more compelling, whether they're side missions or main missions, especially since the fact that the game is going to be kind of mixing up the storytelling technique and having this branching storytelling. Everything feels a little bit more crucial, and there's more of a purpose behind everything you do. It doesn't feel like Ubisoft is just throwing in a bunch of quests and stuff where you go from A to B, and you actually have quests with multiple layers, stages, and some narration and backstory tied to them. On top of the tons and tons of RPG elements that kind of affect your individual character, you're also going to see different elements for customization to your weapons through the form of engravings, which lets you add bonus effects to your actual weapon, like poison damage. You can add special abilities to each weapon, like quiet takedowns, for example. While the game is running on the same engine as Origins, and the quality is pretty much looking the same, they did make some improvements, and the color palette here is definitely something worth taking notice of. The ancient Greece setting adds a lot of variety, though, to what you're looking at, and Origins, for the most part, was mostly just desert and sand, and therefore stayed mostly the same as far as the color palette was throughout the game. But in Odyssey, there's just so much lush settings and just different colors and backgrounds, and the water just looks absolutely beautiful next to the amazing architecture we see in the cities. And while it's a minor difference between Origins and Odyssey, we actually think that the Greek setting is going to look a little bit better. If you're debating between which game to play, if you haven't played Origins or Odyssey, we'd almost suggest that you jump in with Odyssey just because of how great it looks, and it's going to look even more amazing in 4K. One of my bigger gripes, though, is that a lot of the cutscenes, since they're rendered in-game, they're not pre-rendered or anything like that, they do look a little bit awkward at times when players are talking, and it's something I talked about back when we reviewed Origins before its release, and it doesn't look like it's gotten too much better. It hasn't gotten worse, so if you're okay with the way it looked in Origins and it didn't kind of take you out of it, that's okay, but there's still something kind of missing that just makes some of these player models, when they're speaking, just look a little bizarre, or maybe some weird glitch happens in the background. But hopefully this won't be too much of a problem, and maybe it'll look even better upon a release with the day one patch. And then getting into the different editions of this game, there's a couple of different options out there for what you could be interested in buying. Fortunately, it doesn't look like there's any crazy $800 edition to the game like Assassin's Creed Origin had for some reason, but you have your standard edition that's $60. That's what's going to be what most people are going to get at the release, just the base game. We have the deluxe edition that's $20 more at $80. It's going to add a couple of skins. Unfortunately, boosters are back. I'll talk about that more in a minute. Gold edition, it's $100. It includes the season pass. If you really like the Assassin's Creed games and you think you're gonna be playing this game a ton, maybe pick this one up so you get all the season passes and all the DLCs early, and you get to play the game 3 days early, which is kind of cool. And then there's also the Ultimate Edition, which is $120, and that's everything you get before, plus you can play the game 3 days early. And then there's also the really super duper editions like the Spartan Edition that comes with figures and other items that are more aimed for collectibles, so we're not going to weigh into those pieces as much. Another element that we're kind of nitpicky on, and this is something that really has irritated us when we review the Assassin's Creed games. To us, we brought it up in the Assassin's Creed Origins review last year, and we're going to bring it up again here, but this game does have microtransactions in it that let you buy boosters and extra types of skins or up your chances of getting certain skins. It doesn't really affect it too badly if it's like cosmetic or optional things, especially in a single player game, but we wanted to at least put it out there that yes, this is in the game. So there is extra monetization in this game coming out. that wasn't, it's not, you're not getting necessarily a base full experience out of your $60. There's room where they can try to charge you more. You are supposedly able to get everything without buying the microtransactions and stuff like that. However, we still don't necessarily know what we can expect or exactly how this system is going to be implemented. If it plays like the Assassin's Creed Origins system worked, it mostly was just optional cosmetic stuff. Hopefully it'll at least be the same case, but we'd really prefer it if just this stuff wasn't in the game and just it was a fair playing field across the board for players who already are spending $60 on a game. We don't feel like people should have to spend more money to get items because it just makes it a weird monetized mess. And it's not game breaking, and it's not something that we're saying you shouldn't buy the game over. It's just something that we wanted to point out because it's still frustrating just because of how the gaming industry has been over the past couple of years with microtransactions and DLC. It seems like Ubisoft, whatever you want to call it, comment section, go ahead and go nuts. Have a field day. But it seems like the big U picked up on where they left off with Origins, and Odyssey plays into the same aspects, but feels a lot smoother, while also getting hugely upgraded in a lot of ways, in particularly the RPG and storytelling elements. They really stepped it up here. The game feels like the best parts of the Assassin's Creed franchise with new and exciting RPG elements, especially the addition of dialogue options, branching quests, multiple endings, romance options, and the different main characters that you get to choose from the beginning of the game. And it really makes this entry stand out from other games we have seen before. It seems like they figured out a way to stay on the yearly cycle, and it really shows how well it can work here. We think that the game is definitely worth it, and it doesn't matter if you've played Assassin's Creed before or not. This game has something to offer for everyone. We're cautiously optimistic going in, suggesting that you buy this game, but at the end of the day, we also are aware that this is mostly a game that is Assassin's Creed Origins at its core, being repurposed and new. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but we'll be curious to see what they decide to do in the future, whether they're going to take another break before adding a third title, or if this was just an attempt to continue the yearly cycle and bring that back up. Hopefully we don't see a ton of glitches and bugs like we saw from the previous games in the series that were released on a yearly cycle, but from what we've seen so far, from what our experiences have been analyzing and studying every inch of this game across YouTube, articles, and everything, it's looking like this game is going to be worth it.